Lily Tomlin's career is often viewed through the lens of effortless comedic brilliance, yet beneath the surface lies a narrative defined by profound complexity and intentional departures from societal norms. Most biographies focus on her legendary status, but understanding her trajectory requires us to look past the accolades and explore the deliberate choices that shaped her worldview. From her early beginnings in Detroit, she navigated a world that demanded conformity, yet she consistently chose the path of individual authenticity. This isn't just a story about a successful comedian, it is a meditation on what it means to remain true to oneself in an industry that prefers predictable narratives. Her refusal to adhere to traditional scripts was not an act of rebellion for the sake of attention, but rather a quiet, persistent insistence on personal integrity that started long before she achieved national recognition. Her childhood, marked by the rigid structures of a working-class environment, provided the foundational tension that would later fuel her creative genius. Growing up in a household shaped by traditional Southern Baptist values, Tomlin learned early on the contrast between public expectations and private reality. Her father's factory labor and her mother's dedication to nursing defined a life of practicality, which served as a stark departure from the world of performance she would eventually inhabit. These early years were not characterized by artistic grandiosity, but by a keen observation of human behavior, a skill that would eventually become the cornerstone of her comedic work. She wasn't born into a world of theater but rather a world of harsh realities which taught her the resilience necessary to survive in a profession where instability is the only constant. Transitioning from biology at Wayne State to the unpredictable realm of performance was an act of profound self-discovery. This wasn't merely a career pivot, it was a fundamental realignment of her internal compass toward an unpredictable future. In the mid-20th century, women were rarely encouraged to pursue such precarious creative paths, yet Tomlin found a compelling magnetism in the ability to command an audience. This period of her life was characterized by a grueling cycle of small clubs and uncertain pay, a stark reality far removed from the glamour often associated with modern fame. It was during these formative years that she developed her unique ability to dissect the human condition, learning that laughter was not just a reaction, but a complex, analytical bridge between herself and her audience. The transition to New York City solidified her identity as an artist who thrived on observation and intellectual inquiry. Her time at the HB studio was not just about honing technical acting skills, it was about stripping away the layers of pretense that society demanded of her. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she did not seek out the spotlight through traditional, loud comedy. Instead, she mastered the art of the character study, imbuing her personas with a level of humanity that felt deeply resonant and disturbingly real. This approach was inherently risky, as it demanded that the audience work harder to understand the nuance of her performances. However, it was this very risk that separated her from the crowd, allowing her to build a career that was based on substance rather than passing trends. Throughout her rise, Tomlin exhibited a pattern of following her own curiosity over the pursuit of conventional success. While the industry attempted to package her in specific marketable ways, she resisted, often to her own professional detriment. This wasn't a calculated marketing strategy but a fundamental expression of her psyche. She understood that once an artist becomes a commodity, the ability to produce authentic, transformative work is diminished. This philosophy of autonomy became the defining characteristic of her professional life, ensuring that her choices remained hers alone. Even in moments of extreme financial pressure, she prioritized the integrity of her creative output, a dedication that eventually earned her the kind of lasting respect that far outweighs fleeting popularity. The relationship she built with Jane Wagner remains one of the most significant, yet carefully managed, aspects of her life. During an era when the industry was deeply intolerant of non-traditional identities, their connection was a testament to the power of shared intellect and creative synergy. They operated in a space of professional equality that was rare for women at the time. Their partnership was not merely personal. It was a robust creative machine that produced some of the most enduring work in American comedy. By shielding their private life from the voracious appetite of the public, they were able to cultivate a space of intimacy that provided the emotional safety necessary to sustain a decades-long career. It is impossible to analyze Tomlin's career without acknowledging the systemic pressures that forced her to keep certain truths hidden. The industry's willingness to exploit personal identity for PR purposes was a hurdle she navigated with significant foresight. When major publications attempted to treat her identity as a bargaining chip for visibility, she recognized the danger of allowing her professional work to be overshadowed by tabloid-level discourse. Her refusal to play that game was a form of protection, not for her privacy but for the longevity of her work. She understood that once an identity is reduced to a headline, the complexity of the person behind it is inevitably erased, and she refused to let that happen to herself. Her mother's influence, despite being grounded in a traditional religious worldview, inadvertently contributed to the depth of Tomlin's emotional intelligence. The silent, often painful negotiations between family expectations and her own self-realization provided a rich tapestry of conflict that she would later channel into her work. This wasn't a one-way street of rejection, but a complex evolution of understanding that many individuals from conservative backgrounds have to navigate. Her ability to hold space for these conflicting realities allowed her to grow into an artist who could handle, and indeed thrive, within the nuances of human contradiction. She didn't seek to sever ties with her past, but to reconcile them with the person she was becoming. The longevity of her career, often attributed to sheer talent, is actually a result of her refusal to stop learning and evolving. Unlike many performers who find a winning formula and repeat it until it loses all meaning, Tomlin has consistently challenged herself with new forms, new technologies, and new ways of storytelling. She approaches every project with a sense of wonder and a critical eye, constantly asking if the work is still relevant and if it still challenges her own understanding of the world. This ongoing pursuit of growth is what keeps her work fresh, even as the landscape of entertainment changes drastically around her. The open secret of her life with Wagner was not just a result of societal pressure, but a tactical choice that gave them a level of freedom within their inner circle. It allowed them to operate with a degree of normalcy that was otherwise impossible. By not making their relationship a public performance, they were able to focus on the things that mattered: their craft, their shared history, and their intellectual partnership. This is a profound lesson in how one can maintain an authentic life while navigating an environment that is not yet ready to embrace that authenticity. It wasn't about shame, it was about stewardship of her own narrative. As we examine this early period, we see a woman who was acutely aware of the cost of her choices. She did not stumble into her life, she curated it brick by painful brick. Every decision, from her move to New York to the way she managed her relationships, was weighed against the potential impact on her internal peace. This is the essence of her story, the quiet, often invisible labor of defining oneself against a backdrop of societal expectation. It is a story that resonates because it acknowledges the difficulty of being truly individual in a world that constantly asks us to be something else. The nature of her comedic voice, which often relied on empathy and deep observation, is a direct reflection of her own internal struggles. She understood the pain of being misunderstood, and she used her platform to give voice to those who were also feeling marginalized or unseen. This is why her characters often feel like friends rather than caricatures. They are imbued with a sense of dignity that is hard to find in mainstream comedy. She wasn't just performing, she was witnessing the human experience, and that commitment to truth is what has allowed her work to age so gracefully over the decades. One of the most important takeaways from this early phase is the realization that success is not a binary state. For Tomlin, it was a constant shifting negotiation between what she was capable of doing and what she was willing to sacrifice to achieve it. Many people view her career as a singular, triumphant arc, but when you look closer, you see a series of pivots and adjustments that were often quite difficult to make. This complexity is what makes her journey so instructive for anyone attempting to build a life that feels authentic. It shows that success isn't just about reaching a destination, it's about the integrity of the journey itself. Her ability to remain relevant in a changing media landscape is a testament to her adaptability. She understands that comedy is a living, breathing entity that needs to be constantly fed with new insights and perspectives. She doesn't rely on past victories to justify her presence in the current conversation. Instead, she constantly seeks out new challenges, working with different directors, exploring new mediums, and engaging with younger generations of creators. This willingness to engage with the changing world is what prevents her from becoming a relic of a bygone era. Even in her early days, Tomlin possessed a quality that is rare: the ability to listen. She didn't just walk into a room and command attention. She entered with an ear for the rhythm of the conversation, an eye for the dynamics at play, and a heart for the vulnerabilities of the people around her. This is why she was able to build such a devoted following. People felt seen by her, and that feeling is a powerful catalyst for loyalty. She wasn't just providing entertainment, she was building a community of people who appreciated the sincerity of her voice. The discipline she brought to her craft is often overlooked in favor of her natural wit. People assume that because she is naturally funny, it just happened for her. In reality, her career is built on a foundation of intense preparation, detailed character study, and an unrelenting standard of excellence. She treats her work as a form of intellectual inquiry, researching her roles and engaging with the craft in a way that is deeply professional. This level of rigor is what allowed her to sustain such a high level of performance over so many years. We often talk about the overnight success of performers, but Tomlin's story is a powerful counter-narrative to that myth. Her success was a slow, deliberate accumulation of experiences, failures, lessons, and relationships. It was a process that took decades to reach the kind of influence she now possesses. This is a critical point for anyone who feels that their own path is moving too slowly. It demonstrates that the most meaningful careers are those that are built on a solid, deep-rooted foundation of experience and persistence. Her refusal to be reduced to a single image or brand has been a persistent challenge for her PR teams over the years. She has never been easy to sell because she refuses to be predictable. This is exactly what makes her so compelling. She is a multi-dimensional person who brings all of that complexity into every role she inhabits. This refusal to simplify her identity is an act of defiance that serves as a powerful inspiration for anyone struggling to remain their authentic selves in a professional world that demands simple labels. Looking back at this early foundation, it becomes clear that Tomlin's strength was never just her talent. It was her refusal to compromise on the things that truly mattered to her. Whether it was the integrity of her creative process or the sanctity of her private relationships, she acted with a consistency that is both rare and admirable. She understood that the price of authenticity is often high, but she was willing to pay it because she knew that the alternative was a life lived in a state of constant, performative exhaustion. Finally, we must recognize that Tomlin's story is still being written. She has not reached a point of finality or static definition. She continues to push the boundaries of her craft, continues to question her own assumptions, and continues to engage with the world in a way that is deeply thoughtful and profoundly honest. This is the mark of a true artist, one who refuses to be finished, who remains open to the world, and who continues to find meaning in the persistent, beautiful, and often messy process of living an authentic life. The decision by Lily Tomlin to speak openly about her life without children was not a rejection of family, but an affirmation of the life she had chosen. In the context of the era she grew up in, such an admission was nothing short of revolutionary. Many women at the time were bound by the assumption that their professional lives were merely a prologue to the true life of motherhood. Tomlin disrupted this narrative by simply and clearly stating that she was not willing to split her attention in a way that she felt would shortchange both her career and a potential child. This was not a cold calculation. It was a deeply compassionate realization about the realities of human focus and dedication. The societal reaction to her honesty was intense, and it highlights the narrow bandwidth of acceptable life paths that existed at the time. When she addressed the topic on television, the collective gasp of the audience was a reflection of the deep-seated fears people had about the disruption of traditional structures. She wasn't just saying she didn't want kids, she was implicitly saying that the standard model of success for women was not universal. This act of intellectual honesty was a powerful service to other women who felt the same way but were afraid to articulate it. It opened a door for a more nuanced conversation about the choices women could make about their own bodies and their own time. It is important to emphasize that her reasoning was rooted in a genuine respect for the commitment that parenthood requires. She wasn't just looking at her career. She was looking at the life she had built with Jane Wagner and realizing that the energy required to raise a child would fundamentally alter the equilibrium they had created. This was an act of extreme honesty, both toward themselves and toward the potential for a family. Many people enter parenthood without fully grappling with the ways in which their lives will irrevocably shift, but Tomlin's introspection allowed her to make a decision that felt, to her, like the only path that honored the reality of her existing commitments. The discussion surrounding a potential sperm donor and the possibility of carrying a child shows that this was not a decision made in isolation. It was a subject of deep, serious contemplation within her partnership. They considered the implications of bringing a new life into their world and weighed those considerations against the reality of their professional lives. The fact that they landed on the decision to remain without children is evidence of their shared priority for a life that was deeply connected to their creative work. It was a choice that was arrived at through rigorous, honest, and shared reflection, which is perhaps why she has remained so at peace with it throughout the years. The state of the world has also played a role in her reflections, a perspective that has only deepened as she has aged. She has spoken about the inherent challenges of raising a child in a volatile, unpredictable, and often unjust society. This is a sentiment shared by many, but when articulated by someone of her stature, it gains a new layer of weight. It suggests that her decision was not just about her own life, but about an ethical assessment of the world into which a child would be born. This is a deeply contemplative way of looking at existence, one that goes beyond personal desire and touches on broader concerns about responsibility and the future of humanity. Behind the scenes of her public, humorous persona, there exists a level of emotional complexity that is frequently missed by audiences. Her own descriptions of her volatility and her deep, often overwhelming, reactions to the state of the world are key to understanding the person behind the characters. She has never attempted to present herself as a saint or a stoic. Instead, she admits that the pressures of the industry, combined with her own high sensitivity to injustice, can lead to moments of explosive frustration. This is a humanizing admission, one that shows she is not a polished public relations machine but a person with real emotions, real exhaustion, and real limits. Incident on a film set where she lashed out is a perfect case study in how the public often misreads such moments. Instead of viewing it as a moment of human frailty, the media and the public often try to turn it into a scandal. Tomlin's ability to simply explain it away as a moment of exhaustion was a power move. It denied the public the ability to define her through a single negative moment. By acknowledging her own limitations and the chaos of the environment, she reclaimed the narrative. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about being present, even when that presence is messy and difficult. This emotional intensity is also the source of her creative power. The same sensitivity that makes her feel deeply about world events is what allows her to find the pathos in her comedic characters. She can move between laughter and tears because she allows herself to experience the full spectrum of the human condition. While she notes that this can be an exhausting way to live, it is also the reason her work possesses such depth. She doesn't filter the world through a screen of indifference, she lets it hit her, processes it, and then translates it into art. This is a rare and difficult gift. When she looks back on her life and says it doesn't add up to something complete in the traditional sense, she's challenging our own assumptions about what a life should look like. We are conditioned to think of life as a cumulative project where every success, every award, and every relationship serves to build a grand monument of self. She sees her life more as a series of experiences. Things she did, things she felt, and things that happened. This perspective is refreshing because it refuses to turn her existence into a finished product. It allows for the possibility that a life can be valid without being a neatly tied package. This lack of completion is actually a sign of a life that is still very much in progress. If you feel like your life has added up, it might mean you have stopped growing. By remaining open to the idea that her life is still a work in motion, she maintains the vitality that keeps her work relevant. She doesn't need to justify her life through a retrospective lens of finality. She's happy to just keep being, keep working, and keep exploring. This is a liberating way to view one's own existence, especially in an age that demands we constantly curate and present our lives as finished, perfect stories. The tension she speaks of, the space between her public success and her private sense of things, is something that almost everyone experiences, yet few are brave enough to admit. We all have that sense that the official version of our lives doesn't quite match the internal reality. By speaking about this, she grants permission to others to feel the same. She reminds us that external success is not a cure for internal questioning. It's a powerful grounding truth that makes her more relatable, not less. It makes her human. The consistency with which she has maintained her privacy is another key element of her character. She has always understood that once you give away your privacy, you rarely get it back. She chose to give the world her characters and her performances, but she kept the personhood behind them largely for herself and those closest to her. This wasn't because she was hiding something shameful, it was because she was protecting the core of her being. This is a lesson that is perhaps more relevant now than ever, in an era where total exposure is treated as a default setting. Her activism with Jane Fonda is another facet of this multifaceted life. These actions were not performative, they were driven by a genuine concern for the future. Her willingness to be arrested for a cause is a testament to the fact that her values are not just intellectual concepts, they are lived truths. This alignment of values and action is what makes her influence so enduring. People respect her not just for the laughs she's provided, but for the seriousness with which she engages with the world. Even her humor is often used as a tool for this kind of engagement. She uses comedy to point out the absurdities of the world, to question power, and to advocate for a more empathetic society. Her characters aren't just funny, they are social commentary. This is a very difficult balance to strike, and she has managed to do it for decades. It requires a high level of intellectual rigor to be both accessible and pointed, and that's a hallmark of her genius. Her relationship with the aging process is also notable. She doesn't fight it, nor does she try to pretend it isn't happening. She approaches it with a sense of curiosity, observing the changes in her own perspective and the world around her with the same eye she uses for her characters. This is a masterclass in how to grow older with dignity and grace. It's not about maintaining a youthful persona but about evolving into a more complete and more honest version of oneself. The way she speaks about her career as something she did rather than what defines her is a critical distinction. It allows her to step away from the burden of her own legend. She doesn't have to be Lily Tomlin, the icon, all the time. She can just be Lily. This is a crucial distinction for anyone who is known for their work. It allows for the possibility of separating your worth as a human being from your productivity or your reputation in the eyes of others. Her honesty about not feeling her life is perfect is perhaps the most disarming thing she has ever shared. In a culture that demands perfection, admitting that your life is messy, complicated, and perhaps a bit lacking in the way you once expected is a revolutionary act. It makes her work more poignant, because we know that behind the humor there is a person who has struggled, who has questioned, and who has lived through the same uncertainties as the rest of us. This honesty is exactly why she continues to connect with new generations. Young people in particular are often overwhelmed by the pressure to have a perfect, complete life by the time they reach a certain age. Seeing someone of her stature acknowledge that they don't have it all figured out and that they don't even believe a perfect life is possible is incredibly reassuring. It gives them permission to breathe, to struggle, and to just be. In many ways, her life has been a silent rebellion against the very idea of a proper life. She has refused to take the easy path, refused to accept the standard definitions of success, and refused to let others define her worth. This is a life that has been built on her own terms, and that is perhaps the most successful outcome any of us can hope for. It's not about how many awards you win but about whether you stayed true to yourself, regardless of the cost. Ultimately, her journey teaches us that there is no single right way to live a life. There is only the way that you choose to live it, with all its joys, its sorrows, its moments of clarity, and its moments of confusion. Tomlin has shown us that you can be successful, famous, and brilliant, and still be a person who is grappling with the same fundamental questions as everyone else. And that is what makes her not just an icon, but a human being worth listening to. The friendship between Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda is one of the most compelling narratives in modern Hollywood, largely because it eschews the performative nature of most celebrity relationships. It is a bond built on genuine mutual respect, a shared history of struggle, and an unwavering commitment to authenticity. When they work together, it feels less like a professional collaboration and more like a meeting of minds. They challenge each other, laugh at the same things, and hold each other to a standard of truth that is rare in an industry where vanity often dictates interactions. This friendship is a beautiful counter-narrative to the idea that women in entertainment must be competitive or catty. Their collaboration on long-running series and films is not just about the chemistry, it is about the shared language they have developed over the years. They can communicate through a glance or a subtle gesture, which brings a level of spontaneity and realism to their performances that is hard to replicate. Directors often remark on how they don't need to direct the pair, they just need to turn on the camera and let the natural dynamic between them play out. This is a level of comfort and trust that is the holy grail for any performance artist, and it serves as a testament to the depth of their relationship. What makes this friendship so significant is the way they have supported each other through personal crises. When Fonda faced health challenges, Tomlin was there not just as a colleague but as a steadfast friend. Her description of Fonda as indomitable was a powerful, quiet tribute to a woman she deeply respects. This is a form of support that goes beyond mere pleasantries. It is a deep, foundational anchor. In an industry that is notoriously fickle and transient, having such a stable, long-term relationship is a true rarity and a testament to the characters of both women. Their shared activism is another crucial component of their connection. By standing together in protests, they have shown that their bond is not limited to the screen. They share a vision of the world that they are committed to fighting for, and that shared purpose has only deepened their connection over the years. These actions are not just about personal satisfaction, they are about using their platform to advocate for change. It is a powerful example of how friendship can be a catalyst for both personal growth and public service, creating a force that is far greater than the sum of its parts. The lack of pretension that defines their interactions is a breath of fresh air. They don't try to impress each other or anyone else. They are comfortable enough to be vulnerable, to be funny, and to be entirely themselves. This is a quality that is sorely lacking in a culture that is increasingly obsessed with image and branding. Their friendship serves as a reminder that the most important connections in our lives are those that allow us to be truly authentic, without the need for masks or rehearsals. It's a standard of friendship that everyone can aspire to. As Tomlin enters this stage of her life, her words have taken on a new, unvarnished quality. She is no longer trying to protect an image or appease a public that has spent decades projecting its own desires onto her. This is a form of liberation that is both beautiful and, as she puts it, unsettling. She is speaking directly, without the buffer of character or comedic timing. And what she is saying is that the internal sense of incompleteness is something she has learned to live with and even to appreciate. This is a level of honesty that is rarely seen in the public eye. When she says that she doesn't look at her life and see a perfect trajectory, she is performing a great service. She is humanizing the experience of success. She is saying that even when you reach the pinnacle of your career, the basic, fundamental human questions remain. This is a truth that is often buried by the weight of professional achievement, but it is a truth that we all need to hear. It means that we don't need to worry so much about reaching an endpoint. We just need to keep living, keep questioning, and keep being authentic. Her refusal to be defined by her work is another vital aspect of her legacy. She has had a brilliant career, but she is more than just her roles. She is a person who has thought, felt, and struggled in ways that are deeply universal. By insisting on this distinction, she teaches us to value ourselves for who we are, not just for what we do. This is a profound lesson for a culture that is obsessed with productivity and achievement. It's a reminder that our value as human beings is inherent, not earned. The tension she speaks of, the feeling that she doesn't fully connect with the legend that has been built around her, is a sign of a healthy, self-aware mind. She doesn't fall into the trap of believing her own press. She knows who she is, and she knows that the public perception is something that is entirely separate from the reality of her own life. This is a level of groundedness that is incredibly hard to maintain, and it's a big part of why she has remained so grounded throughout her long and successful career. The way she has navigated her life, by choosing privacy over publicity, by choosing integrity over convenience, and by choosing authenticity over performance, is a model for how one can live a meaningful life in the public eye. She has shown that it is possible to be successful without selling your soul and to be famous without losing your sense of self. This is a legacy that will last long after the last award has been given. It's a legacy of integrity, of truth, and of human connection. We often look at the lives of icons and try to find a lesson, a simple takeaway that we can apply to our own lives. But Tomlin's life resists such simplicity. It's not a story with a neat moral, it's a story with 1,000 nuances, 1,000 choices, and 1,000 moments of realization. And that is exactly what makes it so valuable. It tells us that our own lives don't need to be simple or neat to be meaningful. They just need to be ours. Her impact on future generations of creators is immense. She has shown them that you don't have to follow the crowd to be successful. You can find your own voice, trust your own instincts, and build a career that is as unique as you are. She has paved the way for a more diverse, more authentic, and more thoughtful kind of comedy, one that values the humanity of the characters over the punchline. This is a gift that will continue to pay dividends for decades to come. As she continues to work, she remains a living example of what it means to be a lifelong learner. She doesn't stop, she doesn't settle, and she doesn't stop asking questions. This is the mark of a true artist, one who is always in motion, always evolving, and always seeking to understand the world a little bit better. It's a beautiful thing to witness, and it's an inspiration to everyone who believes that growth is a process that lasts a lifetime. Her reflections on the state of the world show that she remains deeply engaged with the challenges we all face. She hasn't retreated into an ivory tower of celebrity. She remains on the front lines of the conversations that matter. This is a sign of a person who is truly alive, someone who cares about the world and her place in it. It's a powerful testament to the fact that you can be successful and still stay deeply human, still stay deeply connected, and still stay deeply committed to the common good. Looking back, we can see that Lily Tomlin has never been a static icon. She has always been a person in the process of becoming. Her journey is not about reaching the top. It is about the ongoing process of finding truth in an increasingly complicated world. It is a story of resilience, of authenticity, and of a quiet, persistent refusal to be anything other than exactly who she is. And that is a story that is worth telling, worth hearing, and worth living. As she moves forward, it is clear that she will continue to surprise us. She will continue to challenge our assumptions, continue to make us laugh, and continue to force us to look at the world a little differently. This is the nature of her talent. It's not a fixed thing but a dynamic, ever-changing force. She is a treasure not just for what she has done but for who she is and for the way she has chosen to live her life. The question she poses at the end, can one have a successful life and still feel something is missing, is the ultimate question for us all. It reminds us that no matter how much we achieve, the internal search for meaning is a lifelong process. It is a question that doesn't have a simple answer, and perhaps it isn't meant to. Perhaps the search itself is the meaning. In celebrating her life, we are celebrating our own potential for authenticity. We are celebrating the idea that it is possible to live a life that is messy, complex, and deeply, wonderfully human. We are celebrating the fact that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy. And most importantly, we are celebrating the fact that our stories are our own to tell, and that we have the power to define what success means for ourselves. So, as we reflect on the life of Lily Tomlin, let us take the lessons she has taught us to heart. Let us be more authentic, more thoughtful, and more committed to the things that truly matter. Let us embrace the complexity of our own lives, and let us never stop asking the questions that lead us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. Ultimately, her life is a mirror. When we look at her story, we are actually looking at the potential within ourselves. She has shown us that being true to yourself is the most difficult and the most rewarding thing you can ever do. That is the true, lasting, and beautiful legacy of Lily Tomlin.